Hey guys, so I picked up something new today. Of course, I picked up some silver because any day I can buy silver is a good day to me. So I got four mercury dimes, nothing special, but I did pick up a 1945 S. It's not a micro S, but at least I have another 45 S. And I got a 1948 D Benjamin half dollar. These are a better date, so these are good. And I got a couple of Morgans. This is a 1899 S. It has a mintage of like 2.5 mil, so it's a better date. And then I got this 1896 Philly, and it's a common date. It's mid. It's about I think 9 or 10 million, but it still has the original luster, that pinwheel. And anytime you see a Morgan for a good price, it still has that pinwheel. That means it hasn't been cleaned. So I picked it up. For like I said, if I'm going to buy silver anyways, any day to pick up silver is good, but I'd rather have 90%, something like that, especially with that pinwheel. That pinwheel effect it's beautiful when you have one. All right. So I picked up a few things from Old Man. Now, this is a modern effigy, so this is not ancient. This is probably maybe the 60s or before. I don't know exactly when. And the way that I know that it's modern is because it's not made of the correct material. And also, it was labeled 20th century. So it's not old, but it is still vintage. And it looks like it could be a bear or something. I was thinking it was like some kind of reindeer, not reindeer, but I'm in the south, so we don't have reindeer here. But I was thinking it might be a deer, like you can see what looks like a horn, but actually it looks more like an ear. The Cherokee Indians and other tribes for tourism would create these. This feels like it's made of clay or soapstone, but to me, I paid $12 for it, and it is vintage. It's at least got that to it. But I thought this is a piece that I could just kind of keep on my desk and not worry about spending a lot of money, investing a lot of money into, because these real effigies can go into several thousands of dollars. If you check eBay or check some other websites, you'll see some of the actual real effigies that were dug up or found go for several thousand. So this is one I can just play around and look at and get some inspiration from. Here is a Mammoth Tusk, and this is kind of cool. And I smelt it. I just I like that you have to use all your human senses. And oddly enough, it smells like walnuts. So if you ever handled like raw walnuts, like fresh off the ground, you smelt it. It kind of has that dirt smell. That's what it smells like. I know I'm weird, but um, we have a lot of Cherokee and Creek and some other Indians that occupied the area before we were here, for like pre-Columbian. But they would use this to sharpen their blades, like you see behind, and also they would use it for other stuff. And this one, it's really sharp, so it might have actually been used as a cutting tool or some kind of smoothing tool. You don't, when it comes to like Native American stuff, unless you really did a lot of research or know someone that has, or know someone that is maybe a Native American with some relatives or ancestors or a storyline that really told about all the tools, it's kind of hard to actually know what the tools were used for, because they improvised a lot. I used to install cameras and low voltage wires for a living, and I would make my own tools. So even now, I would put stuff together. I would make makeshift tools, and I wouldn't really have a name or an exact reason why or purpose it was for. It just had a purpose at that time. But that's kind of how the prehistoric tools are. But all of our ancestors created stuff like this. So there's different designs and different styles, but like the little arrowheads, you can actually find these all over the world. But these are all from the North Georgia, Cherokee, Kennesaw kind of area. And Kennesaw was Native American for cemetery or burial ground. It's kind of interesting. They had a word that sounded like it. I'll put it on the screen, but we pronounce it Kennesaw. So, but this is a mammoth tusk, and it's cool. I had to pick this up, and you can still see the fibers. And mammoths were still roaming around about 10,000 years ago. So we hunted them. We hunted them out of extinction. Now, it might not have been totally our fault, but we were a part of it, or we might have been totally the fault. But anyways, this is a Mammoth Tusk. This is nice. So, and I picked this up. I got a deal on this. So you can see it was 95. I got this and all of these arrowheads and tools for 275, which it would have been about 340 something. So it was, yeah, about 300 and about 330, 340. But I always try to talk a deal, especially with old man. He gives me some good deals, especially because he knows I buy a lot. Anyways, I'm ranting a little bit too much about the Mammoth Tusk, but so these I haven't studied yet, and after I do the presentation I'm doing now, I'm going to go into the arrowheads and the material they're made out of, which is chart. And chart are flint. Now, chart is the overall kind of material, and I'm going to get into it a little bit more. Flint is different because flint is a type of chart, but I'll get to it, or chart. Anyways, so you see, I'll take the camera down a little bit. All right, so you can see these are some tools. So this is like a hammer, like a hammer that they would use to hammer stuff or chip stuff. And there's some videos that you can watch about knapping or Flintknapping. Knapping is where you take a raw rock and you cut it and you break it how you need it. So this might have been used for that. It might have been used for other stuff. Like I said, these are probably multi-purpose tools. They didn't really have just one purpose. And this one is actually, let me see if I can get the camera. This one is actually like a axe. You can feel it's super sharp. I'll get some other angles in a minute. And these are some other kind of tools. Like I said, they're probably more multi-purpose tools. And you can see how this one kind of have those concaves on it, where you know, when if you watch a video, and I'll put a video in the description about knapping, there's an art to it. So they look at the angles, they look at the shapes, the corners, the cuts, and everything. It's just mind blowing. So I got this for me to learn a little bit more, because to me, once you get some skin in a game, that's where you can really start learning, because you might not have the want or the need to really study something until you have some money in it. So let me change the camera angle and I'll get some better views of this. But also, I got a couple of books, and this one is from 1855, and this is The Healing of Nations. And this book is really interesting. I'm not going to go over the whole lot because I really haven't gotten to it a lot. I've just read some of the pages, but I didn't want to turn it and flip it too much, because it is what, 100 and my math is not mathing right now. I'll put it on the screen. It's like a 170-year-old book. But this was a guy who said that the Lord was speaking to him, and this was during the time of spiritualism, like the Second Awakening. And you can see how it's quoted into different sections like the Bible. And he was said to talk to God, and he would just write down everything that he thought about or he received or downloaded from God, supposedly. So that's an interesting book. And one of the governors or mayor or something came out to help and support him, and to prove that he was doing it exactly how he said, that he was just writing as he talked, kind of like freestyling, and he claimed that it was like downloads or messages from God. So that's a pretty interesting book. And this book I just got for $1, but and this is nothing major. It's a really cheap book that you could probably get for $5. But if you don't have one of these, I would get one if you're interested in like art and history. This goes through, and this book's from 1970. I like older books. But you can see it goes through all the time periods in history, but this focuses on art. And you can see it starts with ancient art, and you can kind of see, like my bookmark, but it shows the birth of art and shows the different time periods, and just different cave paintings and stuff. And it goes all the way until modern pottery and modern drawings. And I just thought this was pretty cool for $1. And this will help me study and help me learn a lot. And then I can also compare to more modern studies, which would be like, you know, really using the internet, like maybe not AI exactly, but AI might help find pages. But I always maybe use AI as a tool just to find links, and then I actually read the links in articles that it leads me to. I just don't read the first thing that AI gives me. But I thought that was pretty cool to have here at home. You could take it anywhere. The internet, the lights go out, you can read it. If the lights go out, you might have to go outside during the day or something. But this you can use without the internet. So that's why I like physical books. Anyways, let me show you a little bit about this, and I'll tell you a little bit about the material they're made out of, which is not just rock. So my terminology and my explanation might not be perfect. It might be as good as my drawing, which sucks. So I'm just going to kind of simplify it. And in the comments, like I said, if you're better at detailing it than I am, please go ahead and comment. But you have the ocean, which is where life really began. And you have these single cell organisms like amoeba, and you have like if you've heard of plankton, right? Not from SpongeBob, but actual plankton. You know that's the key to all the animals in the ocean. They all eat plankton. So you have these diatoms and these radiolarias, just a single cell, different type of single cell organisms, and they use the silica or the silicon dioxide that's in the water, and they use that to form a shell kind of around them. Now these are microscopic. You cannot see these with your eyes. You really need a microscope to even one of those scanning spectroscopes, whatever. I'll put it on the screen. But they use the silica in the water or the silicon dioxide to make this shell. And when two of them come in contact, they'll bond and they'll make this skeleton. So it looks more like this because of a tension on the two cells. But then when more starts to add, it's kind of like bubbles or foam. And they start to make these real intricate, beautiful, artistic designs. They look more like a golf ball, but you'll have like this kind of golf ball thing inside this golf ball thing, inside this golf ball thing. I'll put, there's a video to it. I'll put a link to a couple of videos that explain this better. But anyways, so they use the silica to make the shell, and as they form together, they have the skeleton, and then they have these little like tentacles, and there's a bunch of different ones. They have these tentacles, and when that organism dies, that skeleton, like here, it's a horrible drawing, like I said, but what's left over is the silica or the silicon dioxide. That goes into the sediment, like the ancient seafloor, and they will get into little pockets. And then over time, they'll decompose and they'll turn into chert. So that's what chert is. So you'll have on the ancient seabed, you'll have like the corals and stuff that make up the ancient seabed, which makes up limestone. So you have limestone and then you have parts of chert in it. So what chert is the parts of silicon dioxide or silica mixed into the limestone, and they protrude out. So the Native Americans would find those and chip them off and then turn those into tools. And in the description, I'll put a link to another video that describes plankton according to Ernst Haeckel's theory of biogenetic law. Ernst Haeckel was a German biologist who mapped the tree of life and coined terms like ecology and phylum and discovered thousands of marine species. And what's interesting to me is that microscopic life wasn't proven to be true until the 1670s, which is like 350 years ago or so. And Ernst Haeckel's theory that explained microbial marine life came around the 1860s, 1870s, about 150 years ago. And the theory that microbial marine life becomes chert is only 70 years old. So before the 1950s, the widespread theory was that these rocks were formed by catastrophes like floods and volcanoes, which is partially true, but a lot of rock was formed by molten primordial Earth. So most of these are still theories, and we still don't know a lot about Earth, but it just fascinates me how everything's always changing, and there's new theories of everything all the time, but we'll figure more and more out as we go, so keep studying. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, and tell me about my collection. Tell me what you think. Bye.